first of all, for every 1,000 watts of amplifier you're going to run, you're going to need 100 amps of current to supply that and be able to maintain voltage. Okay? So a 2,000 watt amplifier is going to require 200 amps. Simple math, right? Now, your alternator on a typical vehicle stock is usually going to be somewhere between 140 to 180 amps total output. Your vehicle is going to require about 60 to 70% of what your alternator is capable of producing just to run the normal stuff that your vehicle already has. So you could take that number away from whatever your alternator is capable of producing. And in this case, you're looking at, say it's a 150 amp alternator. 70% would be roughly 50 amps left over. That's close enough. So you have 50 amps to play with. And that means that you could power a 500 watt amplifier, or a total of 500 watts of amplifiers, okay, constantly. Meaning you can play a constant tone at full power, max volume, constantly with that much current on that big of an amplifier. Now, if you obviously think about it, you're not playing a constant tone, a sine wave, constantly. So what do you need if you're in the real world? You're just playing music. But you also like to go loud all the time. You crank that sucker up, okay? If you're cranking it hard, you're playing lots of heavy bass because that's what pulls the power the most. But you're playing music. Typically, you can get by with about half the current in production that you actually need. So, to put that in a different way, your 50 amps of current that you have available or in production coming from your alternator is capable of powering about twice as much of an amplifier, so about 1,000 watt amplifier, or a total of 1,000 watts in amplifiers. Let's say you've got 2 channels of mids and highs that are, you got a 200 watt amplifier there, 100 watts per channel. You got to take that off that 1,000 watts, you see. So whatever you've got, you have to combine it all together, and you should be making about half that much power minimum to be able to play those amplifiers. And if you're using this particular situation, you're also going to need to add more storage. This can mean adding a second AGM battery. It can mean adding a capacitor. And I don't mean one of those little 1 farad, 2 farad, or 10 farad, or 5 farad caps that you see on Amazon. I'm talking about something that has 300 or more farads. 300 to 375, like the Ioxis supercapacitor, ultracapacitor. That's a good choice. That's what I'm using in my vehicle. You could also be running lithium. Now, have in mind, I am not a lithium expert. I'm not even a mediocre lithium guy. But I will tell you this. Some chemistries in lithium are capable of charging at 14.5 volts and higher. Some are not. Some chemistries are capable of functioning in normal temperatures, say from 0 degrees Fahrenheit to, whatever you can take. Some lithium does not like to be that cold, and it will not charge, and it can actually be dangerous if you get it that cold and try to charge it at a high charging rate. So lithium is sketchy. It is very powerful. It is by far the best battery you can run, but it's also sketchy. So know what you're doing before you mess with lithium. All right. Now, all 3 of those are storage as far as we're concerned in this particular topic. So adding any amount of good storage to this equation to allow that alternator to be able to charge more battery, right, between those bass hits and also between songs. It can put power away and store it away so that whenever you draw more power than it can create, you can pull it back out of that battery and it can keep filling it back up. It's going to have to work hard to keep up with a hard playing person, but it's possible for that to happen. It's right on the edge. The best scenario is for you to make at least as much power as you're consuming. And in this case, I would say try to match up your amperage output on your alternator with your watts output on your amplifiers. So if you're running a 2000 watt amplifier, you need 200 free amps of power to be able to power that 200 watt amplifier. Now the number isn't exact. When I'm dividing it by 10 like I'm doing, that's taken into consideration a 10 volt setup, which the numbers work out like this. You would normally take your amperage and multiply it by your voltage to get your wattage. The problem with that is the amplifier is not perfect in its conversion of DC current to AC current. It loses some of that energy in the process. And so by multiplying by 10 instead of 12, we account for some of that loss. It's just a good, easy to remember equation to work this out. So divide your watts by 10. That's how many amps you're going to need to properly, consistently, and smoothly power whatever it is you're trying to drive. The next thing to consider is wire size. Wire size is based on the length of the wire versus the diameter of the wire. So the mass of the wire. The shorter the length of the wire, the more power it can handle versus the diameter of that wire. So whereas, for example, and I'm not giving you accurate numbers, this is just out of my pocket numbers, but let's say an alt gauge cable at 15 feet can handle 300 amps, okay? At a much shorter length, say 5 feet, it may be able to handle 400 or 500 amps. At 2 feet, it may be able to handle 700 amps. So it depends on the diameter of the wire and the length. And you buy the wire you need to carry the current that your amplifier requires. You fuse that cable based on the size of, on the amount of power it can handle, not the amount of power your amp needs, but you're fusing the cable based on what it can safely, constantly conduct. Because if a cable starts getting hot, it will lower its conductivity and get hotter and hotter and hotter. And that heat will not cause your fuse to blow, okay? That heat will melt the jacket on the wire, and eventually that bare-naked copper will find some metal somewhere, connect to it, and create a dead short. When that happens, if you have a fuse, it will blow. Okay, if it's fused for that wire. If the fuse is way too big for that wire, then it's going to sit there and be a dead short and start a fire somewhere in your vehicle. And you're going to burn your vehicle down. So fusing properly to accommodate the wire's diameter and length is important. All right? Don't skimp out on this, because 99% of the time, you won't ever need the fuse. But if you get to experience that 1% where you lose your car, lose your house, maybe lose some family members, that sucks. So fuse properly. If you want to know how much power your wire can handle, how much wire you need to handle a certain amount of current, find a wiring chart on the internet. There's a million of them. It will tell you the diameter of the wire versus the length of the wire and then how many amps it can draw safely. You buy the wire based on that, and then you fuse the wire based on that chart also. Now, everything clear? I'm trying to keep people safe, trying to keep your stuff working. All right. Guys, if you found this helpful or at least entertaining, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And if you like listening to me talk, I upload videos on a daily basis. Hit the little bell beside that. Ding, 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 say all, and then you'll get announcements every time my crazy self wants to tell you how to do something. If that's not your jam, hit the subscribe button and don't hit the bell. Show me some love. It's free to hit that subscribe button. It's waiting. Right there. Come on. Tappy tap tap. One little click makes my life go better. Peace, guys.